IG chat a while ago. Was it somebody here?
It wasn't me.
No? No? Oh, okay. And maybe it was Brian. Brian's not here. Oh, Brian. Yeah. Did you post about Rich Stitzel or was it somebody else?
I don't think it was me.
Oh, okay, somebody posted his thing about don't just watch drummer YouTube videos, like actually learn what they're talking about, and talked about like if just watching all this stuff can kind of lead to a disconnect between you and drumming. Anyone else remember that? Or
I think that might have been Jeffrey that
oh
put that
yeah,
up.
yeah,
But I do remember that bit.
yeah.
What makes you bring it up?
Oh yeah, well he was on the meeting last time, and he was interested in hosting a chops and coffee at some point. Like
I do a bunch of his stuff also. Like I follow him a lot.
oh okay, yeah, his drum mantra stuff.
Yeah, I have like one of his books, like the PDF version of it. But
Oh okay, cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
He's so I think I haven't been able to respond to that email yet, Adam. I'm sorry
Okay.
about that, but
Oh, it's all right.
I'll do that today. I think if all goes well, we're gonna have him lead on Friday next week.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
and I won't make a habit of it. I think he's kind of a special case since he came in here, and
Yeah,
he would do a good job with it.
it sounds like he's he's well qualified and obviously has some stuff that it's gonna be great for us. So
Yeah, it's cool.
yeah. Okay, cool. So it looks like we are live now. So welcome
Oh,
everyone
man.
as well. And Adam, floor is yours.
Yeah, can you help me share stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let me fix that here.
Help me to share.
Let's see. Adam, there we go. Make co-host. There we go. All right, cool.
Okay, and
then I'm gonna mute myself.
oh, my cluttered desktop. You're seeing it. Okay, there was one thing I started with that I didn't have much time with because I was rushing myself. Okay, so who here likes the Quintuplet Paradiddle? It's essentially, can everyone see that? Yeah. So I was talking about this idea of chaperoning. It's kind of a grounding technique. I think grounding in the sense of calibrating your body so you can just feel like whatever you're about to do, you have at least a baseline competence. You know that feeling when you're playing, and I think even Jeffrey talked like he has his wallet in his back pocket, and like suddenly you're thinking about this thing that you feel kind of ungrounds you. And that can be super unsettling, especially when you're going for real challenging drum parts or any action in your life, really. So one really good grounding technique I like to think of is unisons. But thinking in terms of unisons, in terms of stickings, it can be fun because each hand has its own rhythm. And so if we just start with hands together, this is very grounding. If you're playing perfect unisons, you can be certain, okay, like no matter what I'm doing, I know that if I play both my hands together, they're not going to flam. That's just kind of like a comfort. It's soothing in a sense if you're like trying to step up the ladder of difficulty. And so then doing a double in one of the hands, like in the right hand, just one, and bringing it around to alternating, and then bringing the double 2, 3, 4 back and back to unison. This is really basic, but it sets up something that'll get more complicated. So yeah, double in the left hand, 2, 3, 4, double, and now you're alternating. And then a double in the left, 3, 4, wow. Now you're back to unison. Now this time, we're gonna add a little next level trick to it. Do a double in the right, 3, 4, double. Now we're alternating, leading with the left. And we're gonna do a double in the left so that the unison is on the upbeat. 3, 4, double. So these are upbeat unisons, like a little polka beat if you're tapping your foot. And now do double in both hands and you'll bring them back to unisons on the downbeat. 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1. Cool. Yeah, blood's flowing a bit. And that's the general idea. And when it gets faster, I end up feeling a little ungrounded. It seems like such a strange thing to me that downbeat unisons can be fine. And then, like, why is that harder? I mean, it's the same space between the notes. It's the same kind of motions with the hands, but sustaining unison upbeats, I feel less grounded. I feel like if I can't hold the tempo as solid as if it was downbeats. And so that's just kind of a thought that I've been keeping in my mind a bit. Like, why is that? Why are upbeat unisons harder than downbeat when there's so much similar about them? And so I've kind of explored that a little further. And if you bring that to the paradiddle, let's do paradiddle 2, 3, 4 with the right. So if you apply unisons to the paradiddle, you would take the right hand rhythm and do unisons with that. But I think we talked about smacking the butt last time, pulling the left hand away. 3, 4, right paradiddle. And bring it back, and then right hand. And I really like this because, like, if the left hand were on snare and the right hand were on hi-hat, it would be kind of a similar thing. You would get more volume out of the left hand on the snare than you would the right hand on the hi-hat. And so if you're on the pad and you're just trying to get grounded in your body, oriented to the sticks coming back at you off of a surface, it can be really cool to kind of just bring the different hands off of the pad so you can focus on what that rhythm is. And once you focus on what that rhythm is, then you can start to play a unison that way. And this applies to every sticking, which is cool. So I call it chaperoning because a lot of times I feel like my limbs are little kids and they're running around the museum. They're all excited to see all the, what's out there, but you don't want your kids to like knock over the skeleton of the T-Rex. You kind of want to make sure that they're not too out there. You want to, have fun, kids, but kind of want to make sure there's some rules in place. And so I think that like doubling whatever rhythm you're doing in one hand with the other kind of is this chaperone. It's like, okay, have fun, but we're going to make sure you're grounded and you don't get too off the rails. And so once you identify what each rhythm is in each hand, then start doing unisons. So let's play the paradiddle, and then we will play the right hand in unison. So what'll happen is it'll be a triple in the left hand to come around to the unison on the downbeat. Does that make sense? I hope so. I'll play it. Back to paradiddle. 1, 2, 3, triple in the left. Ah, shit, I can't talk and play. I'm running into your problem, Corey. Fuck. So it's going to be a triple in the left to bring the unison to the downbeat on the paradiddle. So the paradiddle first, and then triple in the left brings you to the unisons. 2, 3, 4. And they're coming up on the triple in the left. Triple in the left, left. Ah, fuck. And so that would be the paradiddle version of that. And so what you're doing, you're just exploring, you're kind of confirming that you know exactly what's happening in each hand. So to get around to the left-hand part, it would be a double in the right in order to unison the left-hand part in the paradiddle. So So this is actually the first time I've tried to explain this to people. Is it making sense, or does it feel like this is gonna help you feel more solid in each hand on the paradiddle? What are the thoughts out there in chops and coffee land?
For me, it's and I've also had like one of my first teachers taught me that like the best thing about rudiments and things in general is that you get the sense for what the melody is in each hand.
Yeah,
That's kind of what that's kind of the what I'm trying to take from it is, okay, how can I use this particular rhythmic melody elsewhere? Like where is this this autopilot going to emerge in my speech or playing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, autopilot. That's the exact word. That's what I hate about rudiments is I remember playing rudiments and I was thinking, okay, I want to get them all together. I want to be a good drummer. These are the tools to do it. And on a pad, it's all just it's just all this kind of noise. And like what you're saying, Sam, like really figuring out the kind of clave rhythm that could possibly result in a melody. And so kind of deconstructing rudiments and making them more musical, I think, I think we should start with music first and then get to the rudiments. But as it is in the drumming world, seems like rudiments are here to stay, at least for the time being. So if we can kind of bring music to the rudiments, I think we'll be better off. And so that's the paradiddle. And if you move the paradiddle over one beat, you wind up with 8 paradiddles. I call it the modes of the paradiddle. And I should have written those out, huh? But I mean, you wind up with like the inverted paradiddle is one, like right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left. And so even though on the pad that sounds the same, you wind up with different rhythmic and melodic possibilities in each hand. So we'll try that out. So. So that's the inverted paradiddle. And there are actually 8 paradiddles. I mean, if you keep moving over each one, if I'll write this out and put it in the chat. What happens to the paradiddle is you wind up with all these crazy cool rhythms that are all based out of this one sticking that kind of all of us have heard of and used and not necessarily completely sussed out, or at least I didn't always. But because, when you like all the variety of rhythms that are possible from those modes of the paradiddle, it gets pretty exciting. And then there's the asymmetrical paradiddle, which I think is just more notes on one hand than there are on the other. And so one of my favorites is it's right, left, right, left, right, left, right. So it's just singles in the left and 2 doubles and a single in the right. Such a fucking cool rhythm. I love that one. It's a great fill. Da 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 da. Kind of 70s kind of thing on it. And so, but the cool thing about these asymmetrical paradiddles is you can also do all the modes of those. And so you keep moving those over. And I'll write all these out. I woke up late. I had this idea to write it out. At least I got the quintuplet one, which we'll get to next. But I feel like you can, like, just this one concept of moving notes around in the paradiddle, the symmetrical paradiddle versus the asymmetrical paradiddle, and playing unisons between all those. I mean, that's like a ton of options, a ton of potential melodies and different ways to play paradiddles on the drums that I don't hear people talking about a lot. And so the unison version of this asymmetrical paradiddle would be. And then what's cool is the left hand rhythm has a lot of space in it. So if I do the smack the button the right hand, and this is where it gets cool, because I hear so many, I hear myself, I hear a lot of drummers, these rhythms like kind of ba, 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 I think a lot of drummers lose the subdivisions. You know, it can easily kind of turn into kind of a quarter note triplet, and kind of the space between the notes can get a little wonky. But if you come at it from thinking of this asymmetrical paradiddle, I'll play it left-hand lead. So that's the unison. Now I'm going to do the unison in the right hand. So this is just, I don't know, kind of fun ways of looking at the paradiddle. And that's just a paradiddle in 4/4. And now we get to the little more advanced one, the quintuplet paradiddle. And this is where it gets gnarly. I really love the rhythms that occur in each hand on this beast right here. It's you know, again, it sounds like da 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 whatever. It's, I mean, if you play it on the pad, it's right, left, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, left. But if I do the smack the butt, then I'll take the left hand off. The right hand rhythm is really funky, especially if you feel it in 4. So. And so then if you try to make that the unison, and to try to feel like what the left hand would have been playing, try to feel that double in the air, like really get the sticks off the drums. And now the left hand rhythm. This is, I really like this one. So. And so then I'll try to do the chaperone. I'll bring the chaperone out and do the unison. So. And I'm doing kind of just the ostinato in the feet. This is right to left, and a good grounding exercise is even try to like feel this left-right momentum, kind of feel the pocket and half notes to either side. And then this kind of overlaying the 5 feel over it gets really fun. I think. At least I've had a lot of fun with it. And so when you start mixing up the quintuplet paradiddle and asymmetrical paradiddles and regular paradiddles and moving the modes all around and shifting between kind of linear and unison, you literally wind up with infinite possibilities of how to play the paradiddle. And like Sam said, you come up with melodic interpretations of these tired old ways to play the snare drum. So, and then start with the left hand with the quintuplet paradiddle too, and then all these can easily go into triplets. And yeah, I don't know, what do you guys think of this? Are there any questions or comments?
I'm wondering what this subdivision is. I lost it. I was playing it before, and now I lost it when you started isolating like one side. So how are we? Yeah, I can hear you, but I was picking up on that rhythm, and then I lost like. Are we playing this like as 16th notes, like over the bar, or?
Yeah, feeling it in 4, or you can feel it, or you were doing the ostinato of like kick hi-hat at its 8th notes. You can feel it in like 5/8 or 5/4 or even 5/2, and that's a great exercise in itself. You can can you hear my feet when I do this?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, so in 8th or 5/8 would be this. And 5/4 would be this. And then 5/2, man, you're really stretching the phrase out. This sounds like this. And then there's triplets. And that's 5, and then make that even longer. And so this is another kind of form of grounding, like no matter what kind of pulse you're feeling, if it's a ballad or if it's something fast, if it's triplets, eighth notes, 16th notes, like shifting what you're feeling in the feet, in the lower half of your body, which really translates to me like what the dancer might be feeling. What's, what your hi-hat and bass drum are doing. I think that kind of dictates, like, is it an eighth note feel? Is it a quarter note feel? Or is it more of a half note feel? And it's my humble opinion that pocket is a half note feel. It's really the half note between 2 and 4 and 4 and 2. And I know lots of people have, said and written millions of things on what pocket is, but I feel like it's this coming back around to 2. I personally think that 1 and 3 can be a little wonky. I don't know if you're gonna fudge. I'd rather fudge 1 and 3 than 2 and 4. I feel like 2 and 4 is what the dancers kind of orient to. And so being able to feel like the eighth note and the quarter note and the half note, once you can feel the half note on the downbeat, then like move the half note in the feet to 2 and 4. So this on 2 and 4 would be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it's like when you start superimposing these and hearing how these rhythms feel in the longer phrase, I think it can really loosen up how you hear things. And when other musicians might hint at phrases that are longer or might be in 3s or 4s or 5s, I think you can automatically fall in to this kind of muscle memory, procedural memory that you've already established on the pad. You have these working out, I could follow that linear, I could follow that as unison, or I could, follow that with any of these varieties of modes of these rhythms that I've been working on. So did that help with the question, Corey?
Yeah. I think I just have to think about it in a different way as far as the sticking goes, like more like it's a kind of like an inverted 5-stroke roll. I was really leaning on the like paradiddle thing in my mind, and I'm like, why is this not clicking with me? So, but those different subdivisions are awesome, man. That's going to take me some work to do.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've been working on this a lot. I don't even really work out of books anymore. I just kind of work on different ways of applying this concept to moving it between the limbs. So this could just as easily be like, I would very frequently do left hand and right foot. And so I'll just like do 2 and 4 in the left foot and eighth notes in the right hand, and do the left hand part as unison between the left hand and right foot. And then I'll shift that between all the different types of asymmetrical, symmetrical paradiddles, and just like different rhythms that end up coming out of that. Like there's a 7 that I really like. And that has just, that's such a funky rhythm. And each of the independent rhythms in each hand are cool rhythms. And in triplets, it's cool. I mean, it's all stickings. And I used to like be so into chops, Weckel and Vinny and all this linear stuff. And I remember here listening back to myself, and it's like, man, it's also uneven, like in these linear patterns, I can hear them how they're supposed to be, and I feel like I'm executing them, but just the subdivisions are wonky. And I'm kind of like thinking, well, how do I work on that? How do I even out my subdivisions so they sound like Vinny? And something I found is if I end up doubling things and sort of chaperoning them, then all those grace notes that weren't quite where I thought they belonged, suddenly when I put that other limb on them, be it a right hand or a right foot, I was like, oh, there's a flam there. So what's happening in the flam is which one is early, which one's late? It's like, well, I don't even know. It's like, I think like if you bring this unisons together, particularly in these subdivisions when you're trying to play something linear, yeah, I noticed that I really started finding out where my subdivisions belonged in terms of when you're playing linear, sound, making it sound as though it's something easy when it's not. Which is the trick. And it's even just something basic like a right hand and right foot together, like this rhythm. We probably all played it like. And it's kind of right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, left. Now switch that around and play it left hand lead with the right foot. And make sure that left hand and the right foot are like the unisons are really tight. It's tricky. It's like all of a sudden, and I think what happens is we have this discomfort about it. We start feeling, oh, I don't see many people doing that, and it's uncomfortable. I'm much more comfortable here. I'll just do it this way. But then what happens when you have to play a unison between your left hand and your right foot on a disco gig? Even just Scott Stoots. Yeah, Dave Johnstone. Yeah, he talked about one of his teachers, like 90% of drummers can't play disco. And that sounds ridiculous, right? But I would think it's probably right. Like 90% of drummers, if they had to play a song from beginning to end, there would be flams between the kick and snare, just because it's not something we really focus on. And so another thing that I've noticed about trying to integrate really this linear sticking pattern and how unisons fall is how important left hand lead is. And what happens when you do these unisons is you're training your hands to prepare for left hand lead. Because if you're playing a one rhythm in the right and one in the left, and you've matched the rhythm in the right hand with the left hand, and you're matching the rhythm in the left hand with the right hand, suddenly this complete, you can go between either one. So, you're already training your right hand to play the left hand part in right hand lead. Doing the unison. So when you switch to left hand lead, it makes it a lot easier. It doesn't feel foreign. You don't feel that sort of cognitive dissonance or just that body feeling of like, oh, that was awkward. Oh, I don't want that feeling on the drums. I'm not going to do that. And so, yeah, really digging into the unisons helps you to get around to playing the, left and right equally, whichever one you start with. So even in terms of the paradiddle, so that was left hand lead paradiddle I switched to, and then I did the triple in the right. And I think once you feel that complete confidence to go back and forth between right hand lead and left hand lead, like so many more options come up, even in single sticking. So because something I love to work on is just doing 16th notes on the hi-hat and putting a double in either hand and bring it around so you have to play the backbeat in the left. Now, okay, I'm going to play this for a while. I'm going to get this to feel good. Now I'm just going to add a double in the left or the right and bring it back around to the left. I'll put a double in the left this time. Fuck. Oops, I did a double in both ends. There it is. Good, Adam, finally. So yeah, and it's funny, you're like, what the hell? All I'm doing is like putting a double, spinning it around from right hand lead to left hand lead. But really feel what does that feel like? Play quarter notes in the bass drum so that the bass drum is doing unisons with the backbeat.
That feels like 9 Inch Nails.
What's that?
That feels like 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah. Trent Reznor, definitely that 16th note industrial feeling. And it's good to start with that industrial sort of quantized, perfect unison thing. But I'm glad you brought that up, because then this gets into, okay, what happens when we start messing with the feel of it, the kind of the swing rate as it would be in Logic, or am I playing a 10% swing rate or a 23% or whatever? But when you start playing unisons, that will really help us figure out how much we might be adding swing to what we're playing. Because like New Orleans stuff, that has kind of a looser swing feel to it. And if we were to do that, let's do this unison exercise and try to do a New Orleans swing to it. So when it's going to be alternating sticking, and we're going to, so right hand lead, alternating sticking, we're going to do a double in the right. And so that we'll be doing unisons on the upbeats, but let's do it with kind of a New Orleans feel. Because when we do the unisons on the upbeats, that's really telling us where our swing feel is at. Because if we're just doing this, it's like, okay, yeah, I can play along with Zigaboo Modalist and I can kind of feel like I'm digging into where that swing is. But now do the unisons. And that's what kind of a New Orleans swing feels like, upbeats. And now here's what Trent Reznor upbeats feel like. That's very subtle, right? So now this is perfect. I mean, well, humanly perfect. However perfect Adam can be is how perfect this is. But so this is more like kind of, I'm thinking more in terms of straight eighth note upbeats. And then now this is New Orleans swing, and now kind of perfect triplet swing. Yeah, you can only kind of tell what I'm doing if you hear my feet. I hope you can hear my feet. But the idea is you're this template of swing. You know, I mean, I'm thinking in terms of being on the grid, being in logic. You know, is it straight? Is it New Orleans swing? Is it perfect swing? Or is it like kind of Tony Williams medium swing, kind of that dotted A16? And so going between these four levels of swing, I mean, there's infinite levels in between all that, but I feel like when people try to swing what they're doing, they're not necessarily making sure all those upbeats are kind of adhering to one template. You know, it's like, oh, I'll be playing kind of a New Orleans thing, and then suddenly for a bar, it'll turn into triplet swing, and then it'll straighten out. And if that's intentional, that's great. But if it's not, I don't think the members of the band will really get what you're trying to do. And I think it's not some part of you not understanding the music. I think the music's in your head, but I think a big impediment is this upbeat is dictating the template of the feel, but we don't really understand where a unison lies that way. So, whoops. So yeah, and then it gets heavy when you start adding these types of swing rates to paradiddles. Because so let's say paradiddles in a New Orleans feel. So just a little bit of swing in it is what I'm trying to do. Now a triplet swing. Sounds kind of white, right? And so differentiating between those two feels and even going into more of the 16th note swing, this upbeat idea really susses out where your template is. And it's something I've been really conscious of. And I watch the grid a lot when I'm recording. I'm noticing where the beats are. If I'm playing an upbeat, you know, kind of something that's more shuffly, more perfect triplet, I'll line it up on the grid. Where am I putting it? Where is my upbeat landing? And so that what happens is when you start doing these unisons between left hand and right foot, or right hand and left foot, that's really when you start feeling how tight your template is. Like, I mean, because you listen to Zigaboo play, and I mean, you don't think tight drummer. I mean, you don't think Weckl, you know, right? But his unisons are pretty damn tight. Like, you know, listen to the meters and listen to something where the bass drum and the snare are pretty damn solid, right? So I think he's very conscious of the unisons and also the template of the groove. Like, I mean, the groove might move around, the tempo might move around, but those upbeats are pretty much always the same swing rate, and his unisons are super tight together. So, and that's how you get that tight, loose feel. I know that's how Keith, well, you know, my hero, Keith Carlock, I know that's how he thinks. He thinks of like manipulating the swing factor, maybe laying back 2 and 4 a little bit, but everything else is like absolute money in the pocket and tight, and unisons are clean. And people seem to like playing with that guy. So I think I want to follow that model and bring some of that. I would take his scraps, you know, like any gig he turns down, I'd probably be like, me. So, I mean, I just think it's a good model in general, no matter how you want to sound, how you want to play. It's really cool to investigate this linear versus unison idea. So here is an example of how I was doing that yesterday.
Adam, I have a question.
Oh, yeah. What?
I was wondering if you do anything, any hip hop type of grooves. Like, how would you consider swinging in a hip hop context?
Well, a great, regarding any style of music, really, playing the left foot on upbeats. That is a big one for me. So I have a wood block in my left foot, and I'll play it on straight eighth notes so that the right hand and the left foot are together. And that, I mean, that's really good for sort of grounding on the downbeat. But then try to play the right hand and the left foot on upbeats and let that dictate. So essentially, you could think of your right hand playing eighth notes, and the right hand is doing the upbeats and alternating sticking. And now follow the right hand part with the left foot. So now when you have that together, try playing some different bass drum patterns that might be appropriate for whatever song it is that you're playing, and make sure that it's all pure unisons with the right hand and the left foot, and make sure that whatever template of swing you're using, that the bass drum lines up with those unisons. So that's because when I hear people try to play I don't call myself a hip hop drummer, but I can kind of hear when it's not right. And I hear, it's really cool when drummers try to, add little rhythmic nuances and maybe delay the kick drum a little bit, or, like switching between that dotted eighth 16th swing and New Orleans swing occasionally, but still I feel like the overall context of the pocket should be there. And so doing these upbeats with unison right and left foot, and still playing what you would normally play in the right foot and left hand, I feel like all of us we'd tune in more to where we're feeling the swing and how that relates to the pulse. Is that along the lines of what you were asking, Brian?
Yeah, I was just thinking because trying to apply what you've been talking about lately. I've been trying to explore some hip hop. I wouldn't call myself a hip hop drummer either, but just like what you're talking about with where it's swung, like how much by the percentage and stuff, and
yeah,
I'm trying to learn these different things, and they're like super slow and simple beats, but it's like so precise to get the beat right, where getting the kick right. It's like a straight beat. It's not like a swung beat, but the kick is like dragged into a certain. It's kind of like messing with me. It's like, oh, it's not swinging. It's like straight, but it's different. I don't know if you had any.
Yeah.
So Brian, I think where that comes from is a discrepancy between having the kick and snare not be swung and the hi-hat is slightly swung. So you do get that kind of jilted. So you have the snare and the kick almost flam a little bit, so that you get that sense of, wait a minute, am I swinging or am I not?
Right.
I've looked into a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, it twists me up because I'll hear something and be like, oh, this sounds simple, and then I go to do it and I'm like, oh, it's not that.
Yeah, it's that Chris Dave drunk beat.
Yeah. So it's funny because if we think about that New Orleans beat, I've even thought of it in terms of 30-second notes. So like there's this rhythm. And then what happens if you take away the accent on the second down? Now you take away all the other notes. Now you move the tempo up. That's sort of like the quantized version of partial swing. I know, but I would work on that. Like just trying to think of it almost like a flam. Pop, 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 pop. And do the unison between the left hand and right foot and keep straight eighths in the right hand. And then take the right hand away. And you kind of feel that lilted. I know Chris Dave does that a lot. Kind of, he'll do a flam, but he'll leave the downbeat sound out, and so you wind up with like this or you reverse that, and it's and it gives this like really tennis shoes in the dryer feel, but you hear it in the groove, like it's still super grounded in the pulse, but it's like he's kind of playing around with how it anticipates or leans into one beat versus the next. And so, yeah, it's all different ways to play around, because I think that some people, I know that I used to think, oh, just loose, jazzier sounds or whatever, you don't worry so much about the beat, where it is, you kind of phrase differently. And I think you're thinking still in super solid terms of where the beat is, but you're just thinking like little bits ahead and behind. But then when it's little bits, how do you know those little bits aren't messing up the groove? And I feel like chaperoning and playing unisons is a way to help that. But I just want to play this video of this is how I mess around with seeing how this relates to the body. So hopefully I can talk over this while I'm playing. So here is me playing. I have overhead cam. I didn't get my shoulders in it very well, but I have my feet to check my grounding, and I have the front cam, and then here's a screenshot of Logic. This is inside kick, outside kick, and top, snare, bottom. And then here are the grid lines. So I can kind of see, okay, here looks like my transient was right on the beat here. So I check where my body is, and I think, okay, it looks pretty good in this bar. Let's play it a little ahead. Oops, see, so now I popped ahead a few milliseconds there. It was on a crash. So I will back that up, and I'll kind of identify, okay, maybe there was some motion in my body that sort of was a prelude to the beat either rushing or dragging. So I'll kind of watch that again. So that was a little rushed right here. That was maybe like 4 milliseconds ahead. And so I was kind of like check out, okay, what was I doing? Okay, so I see I came off the ride. I noticed my right shoulder kind of came up a little bit, and I think that may have pushed me like a few milliseconds ahead. And so if you're trying to play in the middle of the beat, that's not good. But if you want to keep the tempo, but you want to have a little bit of looseness, you can start realizing, okay, if I wanted to rush or drag like internal side of the groove, I have these kind of ways to adapt to that, keeping the groove, but still push or pull.
Is it possible for us to hear that?
Oh, you're not hearing it? Oh shit! How are we?
When you share, can you unshare your screen, and then when you go back to share it, there's a little box on the bottom that says "Share Sound." I think.
Oh, okay, all right. Whoops. Okay, new share. No, stop share. Okay, and then share screen and optimize share sound. Okay, there we go. Or I'll just do desktop. That's better. Oops. Oh man. Hold up. You're hearing it.
Yes, we can hear it.
Yeah? Oh, okay, cool, great. So this is my practice from yesterday. I was feeling a little stressed out after my interview, so I wanted to get on the drums and kind of just see. I felt it in my body. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna want to know how this is representing, with the camera angles and in Logic. So I threw some loops together in Logic on the timeline, and I played along with them, and this was the result. Okay, so that hi-hat beat, I noticed, okay, I clipped that. I went to like maybe 5 milliseconds ahead there. So I want to check out what happened in my body that resulted in that push, because it looks like it also pushed here. It pushed all these notes. And so if I wasn't on the grid and that push happened, that could have very well resulted in a tempo increase, which is not desirable. So, I mean, the metronome kind of keeps us all, a little bit subservient to where it is. But I mean, noticing where you push and pull in relation to the metronome, I think, can also dictate like where your tendency is to rush and drag in general. So yeah, let's just back it up a little bit and see where that came from, what happened in the body. Oh, yep, there it is. I kind of did a little bit of, like when I went to that crash, I leaned a little bit to the left. That threw my balance off, and that kind of pushed me ahead. And if I wasn't on the grid, it would have very well resulted in like a 1 BPM increase in tempo. This is all pretty solid here. There was a little spot. Okay, so here we had, let's see. I mean, I was trying to play really straight here, which would make me think I'd be more in the middle of the beat overall. But then this is really where I like to get into what's happening. Because like, why was this in the middle and this one not when I'm playing so simple, right? So I want to like check that out. I first back it up. I like what's happening in the shoulders. I back it up. I say, oh, what's happening in the arms and the hands? And then I look, what's happening in my left foot? Because my left foot is very often a contributor to my rhythmic crimes. Yeah, oh, there it was. Okay, looks like I put my right shoulder ahead a little bit there. So that was a little push, that fill. I mean, we tend to push our fills anyway, but so I'll back that up and then I'll just hone in on one of these things that I'm doing. And I think this all relates to this unison idea, because most of these things that I'm pushing and pulling, they aren't unisons, but unisons can really help us suss out what our inclinations are. Because if we intend to do hands together and it's not, that means that that's some indication that some part of our body or some part of our cognition is kind of anxious, or it's like wanting to push. Or if it drags, it means that maybe there was a block, there was some tension that you hit and it sort of drew you away from this natural movement that would have kept you in the beat. So I don't know, any thoughts on this?
This is pretty awesome, but man, I would hate for you to be in the studio with me. I would, yeah, man, they would just uncover so much. This is really, really cool stuff though.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, and I mean, again, like, I really feel like, I mean, a lot of my favorite drummers play totally loose. I mean, man, like Steve Jordan, he's definitely not worried about this kind of stuff. but he's just on another level from me where I don't know, somehow he feels the groove more strongly in his body. His body is calibrated to groove its ass off. And mine, I just felt like it hasn't been. I've had this problem with my tension in my hand that's just led to all kinds of flamming problems, like things that should be simple, they haven't been for me. So I've kind of had to over measure, like I was talking about yesterday, how I really needed to analyze the metrics of what my body's doing in relation to time and what my heart rate variability is doing in terms of, I really like just had to dig deep into this and analyze it and evaluate it and then try to create something that possibly I could help other people with. And this is, yeah, this is something that's helped me immensely, especially when I would notice I'd have this like kind of little like elbow thing I would do on the hi-hat. I'd be playing and then I would kind of like lift it. And it's like, what happens when I lift my elbow that way? It's like the shoulder tenses up. It brings this muscle up in my neck. I noticed my head would kind of cock over, and it was a result of this nerve damage. It would trigger this little motion, but it would bump me ahead for 5 to 10 milliseconds in the beat. And it would last for like a bar or two, and then I would kind of like shake it off and I'd gravitate back to being centered. And like I got a lot of work here. I end up replacing loops, and it's like all the band played to the loop, and now they want the live drums to play. And it's like if I'm any tiny bit off from the loop, that means that I'm not going to be able to align with what's already there. So in the work I'm doing, I really need to kind of think in terms of 3 to 5 milliseconds being my maximum sort of a margin for error as it is. And so that's what's led to this. What? Somebody say something? Oh, this is a good example. I was just going to... Yeah?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just went to a kind of 4 on the floor beat here, and this is, I don't even remember how I did, but well, yeah, really noticing like where the kick drum and the snare land. Man, it makes such a huge difference. And even in terms of editing, like, I edit my stuff. If there's like a little mistake here or something there, I'll nudge it around and keep it. But if you try to fix a flam between kick and snare and you just hit a cymbal, anyone ever try to do that? Like you edit over the kick and snare and you put it and like the cymbal dies out and then comes back, and it's like even if you're gonna edit your shit, like it still sucks when you don't like hit a flam to precisely. So let's see how Adam does here. Oh, there was some little Chris Dave hi-hat shit in there. I totally riffed that off of him. I keep it really solid, but kind of do quarter note triplets on the downbeat and then shift them to the upbeat, but keep everything else straight. And that stuff can really lead the groove to suffer. But when he does it, it doesn't, obviously. Oh, yeah, I rushed that fill a tiny bit, but I'm going to be forgiving because it wasn't easy. But anyway, so that's the kind of idea, the macro version. So all this micro stuff I was talking about in the hands, trying to get things to be unison, trying to get everything to play together. The macro version of that is me trying to get a unison between the left foot and the click track. So I feel like if you put a click track on 2 and 4, and you get kind of like a real staccato sound, cowbell or something. And so I use this jam block in my left foot and I play it. And I mean, man, just trying to play a unison on 2 and 4 and a jam block and a click track, it's hard. And even like playing a clap on 2 and 4 with a metronome is hard. And so I feel like, okay, first things first, make sure that you can play a unison with whatever time is being represented in your playing. I mean, being a unison with a bass player or being in unison with a click track. Like if you can be unison there and you've worked out all this unison here, then I think that's really when we become great drummers. Like when you, and it has such a sort of psychology angle to it, like being in unison with yourself so that you can be in unison with others. I'm sure you've all heard that, the bag drops down from the airplane. Make sure you put it over your mouth first before you try to help the person next to you. It's like, man, really make sure your unisons as a drummer are really tight, and then make sure that whatever unisons you're playing are in unison with a metronome, just as kind of a calibration tool, and then be able to move around inside of that, be able to flam and mean it, be able to play unisons and mean it. Know what you're playing. Because I realized, like, when I would learn all these stickings, it's like, I don't even know what I'm playing. Like, my right hand's doing something, I couldn't tell you. And so when you, like, really come around and start playing unisons, it's like, oh, now I know what I'm playing. And it's really liberating, because that's when you can start thinking melodically. Otherwise, this phrase, apply your rudiments to the drum set, and like think, okay, how do I even do that? Well, you can't if you don't know what you're playing. So yeah, knowing what you're playing is essentially the theme of what I'm trying to get to with myself here. And so the unisons in the hands, unisons between the feet, the unisons to the metronome, and then bringing all that to the motions of the body and using multicam with the metronome. I didn't do the heart rate variability on this one, but I also have this heart math thing. You can like clip it to my eardrum or earlobe, and then you clip it to your shirt, and then you watch the app. And so then you start breathing in rhythm to the app. And it's an interesting thing, when you start focusing on your breathing according to an app, then your tempo might start shifting. Like you might start noticing you're not as tight with the click. And so even playing like it's just something that's really simple, just forcing some attention to something else can help you to really solidify it inside of you, so that if something goes wrong, like imposter syndrome, if Gene Coy was my example, walks in, it's like you kind of know that you're so well beyond what you're able to do in the moment that no matter what happens outside of you, you're still grounded in your ability to perform that action. Like a first responder, like a fireman isn't going to only prepare to the level of what's necessary for a medium fire. They have to be able to go beyond. And so whatever we're playing, that's when I like that you're expected to do as a professional, or whatever expectations you have of yourself. I think if you add this idea of breathing to it, that just puts up the notch of difficulty. And then beyond that, there's also something I've been working on with eye movement. It's just moving the eyes back and forth like a Cylon Raider, if anyone watched the cheesy Battlestar Galactica back in the day. But like kind of in rhythm, pick 2 points on the wall and go back and forth and coordinate your breathing. Okay, every second time I go to this right point, I'm going to inhale, and then every second time I'm going to exhale. And man, when you start getting like kind of that level of body and mind focus, coherence, then you're like rooted in this groove. It just really starts feeling amazing. You really start feeling like this mechanism that is letting out what's inside of you. And then when you start increasing the difficulty in what you're playing and maintaining this kind of what you're doing with your other senses, then I think you can be more certain that when you bring this to the stage, you're going to already have that clearance. You're going to have that ability, that pie chart of attention. You've had this like, breathing and eye movement and all these other things. Like I've had this down. So now when I'm on stage and things start getting tight, you're still within your range of like maintaining this professional level. So that's kind of it. I see we're at 8, a little over 8. Look,
I have one quick question.
Yeah.
This is kind of specific, but when you were showing the video with your waveforms going by, I'm seeing the grid lines that are the beats, but when you're talking about measuring the milliseconds, is Logic showing you the milliseconds too? How are you actually calculating that?
I zoom in and measure it. So I'll go in and I'll just pick the whole thing and I'll tap over how many milliseconds it is until it's on the beat. And after having done this for 5 years now, I can just kind of see it and know how many milliseconds it is. And then after so many years of doing it, you just hear it and you know how many milliseconds it is. So
I mean, you're sort of like ballparking that yourself. It's not a measurement in Logic that you can look at.
Yeah. As far as just what happened today, I'm ballparking it. I usually think in terms of a margin of error of 3 to 5 milliseconds. And if it's 10 milliseconds, then I start you know, I was like, okay, this is something I need to work on if it's outside of that range. Because man, 10 milliseconds ahead or behind, that ends up being 20 milliseconds. And 20 milliseconds when you're playing with the kind of musicians we all wish we were playing with, to them, 20 milliseconds is a big deal. So if 20 milliseconds isn't a big deal to us, and we have this idea of wanting to play with, you know, somebody that it is, I feel like that's just more in alignment with focusing what you're working on towards where you want to go. And so yeah, but yeah, it's just I would see something, I can usually guess within 3 milliseconds like where it's placed just by looking at it, because I'm used to doing that.
It's amazing stuff, man. It's amazing that you can be, you know, you're that thorough and that intricate, but it still feels good. It doesn't sound like robotic at all or anything like that. It's
Man,
awesome.
oh, thanks so much. That's what I'm trying to do. I mean, that's what my hero does. Keith's time is just stupid awesome. I mean, so good. But he does, I noticed the Pocket Queen does this shoulder thing that helps her to play behind the beat. She kind of does this, oh man, let's see. Oh, shoot. My posture jock strap isn't around. Oh, it is. Yay, yay. Hold on. I showed Dave Johnstone this. So this is it's a posture brace. So you put it on.
Can you unshare your screen so we can see your full?
Yes. So, I mean, as much as work as I was doing on kind of applying motion to how it's affecting tempo and all this, I was really noticing that my shoulders were an issue. Like how my shoulders were moving. I would have this, like I'd go to a crash over here and I'd kind of rotate a little bit, and then I'd come back to hi-hat and I'd have to come back. And I would notice I'd always rush. And I was thinking, why do I always rush when I hit my left crash? So I really got into my motions in my body, and I noticed that my right arm or shoulder was shifting forward. So I put on this brace. You can adjust the strap. So put it on when you first, it's $12 on Amazon. I'll share a link. It's amazing. It'll really blow your mind when you first put it on. Do it really loose. You don't want to like mess up your circulation or anything. But when you start cranking up the tension, you'll notice go from the ride cymbal to the left crash into hi-hat. And when I had it on tight, I would be like, ugh, like what the fuck? I couldn't even reach my cymbal. And I was just like, wow, how much am I moving and upsetting this balance that I have in my shoulders? And so I think a cool way to, you can still be in balance if you work this way. Like if this shoulder goes forward and this shoulder goes back, you're still in balance. If this shoulder goes forward and this shoulder doesn't go back, that creates tension and asymmetry and balance problems and all kinds of crap you don't want in your playing. If you are like really trying to sound good. I think this is all just conjecture on my part. So, you know, apply it at will and see if you agree with it. But so that what the Pocket Queen does is this thing. And this just, I mean, just doing this without playing drums, having this brace on and trying to feel like a figure eight. I mean, you're always in balance because your shoulders are still square. But yeah, and so what happens if on 2 and 4, this shoulder comes back to here, it drops your beat like 3 to 5 milliseconds late. Because if it were here, you'd be a little closer to the snare. Here, you're a little bit back, but it's not like it's rhythmic, so it stays in time. So it'd be, so like this shoulder forward on the downbeat, right shoulder forward on the downbeat looks like this. And then you kind of put a little sway into it. And so all the unison and stuff you've been working on still applies, but it's a little bit more in time. And so this is just going to add these little pushes and pulls in your playing. I mean, it's physiological. It can't not affect your playing if you move your body a certain way. And it really kind of gets you out of this strict thing that's tightening up. And I mean, I think it even applies to imposter syndrome, that when you tighten up, I think your posture tightens up a lot. If there's some sense that you don't belong inside of what you're doing, there's just all this tension, and like kind of getting this together, just automatic, man, it just feels great. It sort of radiates up into your head to the point that you don't even care what anyone's thinking about what you're doing. You're just digging it. And so then even then when you, And so if this can be your pendulum, you can end up like going back to playing the quintuplet paradiddle and all sort of ridiculous combinations, and you still have the time regulated and centered here. Now, so fives would be like, that wasn't very clean, but I hear triplets then. And I think it just makes the time feel more centered, and it just feels better physically. And then you can hone in on how these different rates feel in the body when you're doing this motion, because you're kind of more sensitive to it when you do that. So, and then, oh man, let's see if I can, here's the coup de grace. You ready for this one? This one is the one that sussed out my 14-year-old basketball camp neck tension that I was having, stress from this horrible memory. So this is a cone that my dog wore when it was injured. And I noticed that in the overhead cam, I would tilt my head forward when I would play. And I was like, how do I keep my head from tilting forward? I like couldn't figure this out. And so I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll put this on. So I have the shoulder brace on and this on. And now whenever I tilt forward, I feel my chin kind of hit the pillow. So now when I do this, I know it looks retarded, but man, this has really helped me with my posture and just like feeling centered. And then the next step from here, and then I have some wrist brace, like for injuries, a wrist brace that you wear. And so I'd put those on my hands so that it reduced you to kind of finger control. So then, and I know this looks, I mean, this is why I'm only comfortable doing it in front of chops and coffee. My dog smell is off of the pillow, don't worry. But I mean, man, I noticed so much improvement in how I felt and how my posture related to my groove and how these little tiny head movements and sort of things that are fucking up my balance ended up being better. And so, I mean, and this just like, man, this feels so good. So, you know, don't do this on camera.
No, this is great. You should do it on camera. You know how many views you will get on Instagram? I might have to steal that.
All right, yeah.
That's how you get a viral video going.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I'm like, I gotta order the harness and the neck donut and show up to my next band practice next week. It's gonna help my time, guys.
It totally does. I couldn't believe it.
Next level clinic.
Yeah, I mean, I would, and then those times that I would see in the video, oh, I pushed ahead here, what happened? And I'd have a side cam and I'd see, oh yeah, I kind of, when I went for something more challenging, or I shift the rhythmic rate, or I change the pattern, any kind of shift at all, I would kind of lean forward, and there would be tension in my neck, and it would throw my balance off, and it would fuck up the time, and then I would usually, oh man, I'd be a little closer to the snare. I'm more likely to shank a rim shot if I'm there. And when I'm all here, and I sort of have this looseness, then it doesn't sound rigid. It's not so Trent Reznor-ish. You know, it can kind of still be human, but you have this more pendulum sort of based in physics. I mean, just helping you play. So that's my shtick. I tried to time this a little better than the last one.
Really great stuff, man. We really appreciate it. It's really cool.
Oh, cool.
I feel like I don't know how to play drums anymore. I think I need to relearn. But no, really cool, man. It's unlocked a lot of weaknesses for me, man. That left-handed offbeat or left foot offbeat thing is, whew.
Man, you know what? You have to have forgiveness for yourself. It took huge amounts of humility for me to practice this. Because, you know, you want to at least sound listenable when you practice, but you have to give that up. I mean, you just have, so, I mean, because the thing that I do a lot is do different patterns between the right hand and left foot on the rim of the tom and the wood block. And so you can really hear, like, even a few milliseconds separate, you can hear that. And so I've been working on like dotted 16th notes, dotted eighths, playing that over what I'm playing. But the upbeat one really tells you, especially if you're trying to differentiate your New Orleans swing from your triplet swing. Like, you know, they're going to be flamming if they aren't like really locked in. And if they're both locked in, then even when you're going to straight eighths, just even mentally and physically, you're calibrated to know what that sounds like, so that when you play ga 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 boom, You know, it's like it's in the feel, and everybody else in the band who's feeling that rhythm a certain way, they hear that fill, and it's like, oh, you know, it's like we're all locking together, and it's like, man, when you can keep the pulse the same and push it and pull it, and everyone's kind of feeling that the same way. Yeah, and I would have musicians come to my studio, and they'd be like, yeah, there's some latency, and I'd be like, dude, no, I got all the plugins off, there's no latency. It's like, yeah, it's like a half a second. I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, this one feels, yeah, it's who is it? Madonna's musical director, anyway, Tim LaFave here is a millisecond. He's been at my studio a lot, and he'd be like, yeah, it's about a millisecond. It's like, I can't hear a millisecond, but him, from the time he plucks the string till the sound comes to his ears, he can hear that difference. And if he can hear it in himself, he can hear it in us. And so if you want to play with like that level of person, I feel like we need to sort of hold ourselves to the standard of where we want to go. And we need to sort of revolve our practice around that.
Very cool stuff, guys. Very cool. Thank you again, Adam.
Really, man, this is the first time I've did this. So yeah, thank you for this place. Thanks for listening. Thanks for not leaving.
Oh man, are you kidding? This is like, for me, I just felt like I just went to a master class, and like, you know, it's really cool for you to donate your time to do this, man. We really appreciate it. So
yeah, thank you guys.
Everyone's streaming online too. You guys are welcome to join Chops and Coffee anytime. Just use the link on drumbrigade.com. And then if you want to follow Adam, YouTube is he says is his best, right?
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah.
Or you guys can just reach out to Drum Brigade, and I'll get you in touch. But yeah, thanks again. And then we'll be back Monday for a regular Chops and Coffee with boring old me.
Oh, I love Corey. Come on.
We'll keep it going, man. Thank you guys again, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Later.
Thanks, y'all.
Take it easy, fellas.
Bye.
All right. Thanks again, Adam.
Oh man, wow, I've been thinking about this shit a lot, and I never talked to anyone about it, so thank you.
This was like the tie together, especially when you showed your video. That's where I was like, that's the money right there. That's it. Like, that's the proof. And then how you jump into like why you're speeding up or slowing down. That's like, dude, that's what people are going to pay you for. Definitely. I think it's great, man. You rope them in with your story. You have all the science behind it and all your studies, and then the proof is in that video. That's amazing stuff, man. Really great.
Oh man. Oh, thank you. Cheers. Yeah. Right on, Corey. Well, man, I love this platform, 7 a.m. hands. It's great.
Yeah.
And man, I do apologize. Normally I would never just kind of offer somebody to guest or whatever, but Rich is a special case.
Oh, no, man. Are you kidding? That's like, okay. Yeah, dude. It's, yesterday I wasn't trying to blow you guys off. I was just like so out of it. I was like, I didn't even know. I woke up, I woke up at like 7:30 and went back to sleep at like 8, and then didn't wake up until like almost noon, and I was still just like, what? Like, I'm like so not used to this. So anyways, but yeah, man, I'm really excited about that. It sounds like something very cool. I'm stoked.
Oh, cool. Cheers, Corey. Thanks,
all right,
brother.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll see you Monday. Thank you.
Sounds good.
See you, Brennan Rezo.
Yeah, see you.
All right, let's see. Yep. All right, are you still there?
I am.
Yeah, I gotta stop streaming here. Hey everyone. There we go. Where I might have to stream your whole lesson. There we go.